The snow fell steadily that February evening, coating the Chicago streets in a thick blanket of white. Robert Mitchell stood at the bus stop on Maple Street, his breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. At 58, he'd seen countless winters like this one, but tonight felt different somehow, colder, more unforgiving. He pulled his wool coat tighter and glanced at his watch. The number 47 bus was running late again, not surprising, given the weather. Robert didn't mind waiting. After 30 years working as a maintenance supervisor, at Lincoln Elementary School, patience had become second nature to him. That's when he noticed her. A woman sat on the bench, her body trembling despite the green quilted jacket she wore. Her wavy blonde hair was dusted with snowflakes, and her bare feet in this weather, rested on the icy sidewalk. She wore a cream-colored dress that seemed far too thin for February, and her arms were wrapped tightly around herself. Robert's heart sank. Something was clearly wrong. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Ma'am," he said gently, "are you all right?" She looked up at him with eyes that seemed both distant and aware. Her face was pale and she was shaking so badly she could barely speak. I don't know where I am," she whispered. Without hesitation, Robert unbuttoned his heavy coat and draped it over her shoulders. The cold bit into him immediately through his dark-ribbed sweater, but he ignored it. "Here," he said softly. "You need this more than I do." The woman pulled the coat around herself, and for a moment, something seemed to clear in her expression. "Thank you," she managed to say. Robert knelt down beside the bench, his knees protesting slightly. "What's your name?" "Margaret," she said quietly. "Margaret Hayes." "I'm Robert. Margaret, do you remember how you got here?" She shook her head slowly, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I was walking and then I don't remember, everything's confused." Robert had seen enough in his years to recognize someone in crisis. This wasn't about the cold or the snow. This woman needed help. Real help. "Okay, Margaret, that's okay. We're going to get you somewhere warm and safe. Can you tell me if there's someone I can call for you?" Margaret's hands fumbled in the pockets of her dress. No phone, no wallet, nothing. Her confusion seemed to deepen, and fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I can't remember." The bus pulled up then, its brakes hissing in the snowy night. The driver opened the doors and looked at them expectantly. Robert made a decision in that moment. "We're not getting on," he called up to the driver. He turned back to Margaret. "I'm going to call for help, all right? We'll get you to a hospital where they can make sure you're okay." He pulled out his cell phone and dialed 911, explaining the situation calmly and clearly to the dispatcher. While they waited for the ambulance, Robert sat beside Margaret on the bench, his arm around her shoulders, sharing what warmth he could. He talked to her gently about simple things, the snow, the shops along the street, anything to keep her present and calm. "You're very kind," Margaret said at one point, her voice a bit stronger. Robert smiled. "My mother always said that kindness doesn't cost a thing, but it's worth everything. I guess I never forgot that." The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes. As the paramedics helped Margaret onto a stretcher, she clutched Robert's coat. "Your coat," she said. "You'll freeze." "I'll get it back," Robert assured her. "You just focus on feeling better." Before the ambulance doors closed, Robert gave one of the paramedics his name and phone number. "Just so she has a familiar name when she wakes up," he explained. The next few days passed normally for Robert. He went to work, fixed broken heaters and leaking faucets, chatted with the teachers and students at Lincoln Elementary. He didn't tell anyone about the woman at the bus stop. It wasn't the kind of thing he felt the need to share. He'd simply done what anyone should do. On Thursday afternoon, as Robert was finishing up his shift, the school secretary called him to the office. "Robert, there's a phone call for you. Says it's important." He picked up the receiver, expecting maybe a doctor's appointment reminder. Instead, he heard a strong, clear voice he half recognized. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Margaret Hayes. We met on Monday evening. Margaret, are you all right? Are you feeling better? Thanks to you, yes. I'm doing much better. There was warmth in her voice now. Confidence. Mr. Mitchell, I wonder if you might be free this Saturday afternoon. I'd very much like to see you again. There's something I need to tell you, and something I'd like to give you. They agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. Robert arrived early, as was his habit, and ordered a cup of coffee. When Margaret walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. She wore an elegant camel-colored coat. Her hair was styled perfectly, and she carried herself with unmistakable poise. But her smile was the same, warm and genuine. She slid into the booth across from him, and before anything else, she handed him his wool coat, cleaned and pressed. "First things first," she said. "You didn't have to get it cleaned," Robert said. "It was the least I could do." Margaret folded her hands on the table. "Robert, I need to explain what happened that night. I have early onset dementia. Some days are better than others. That Monday was not a good day. I had an episode, got disoriented, and wandered away from my home. I don't remember much, but I remember you. Your kindness, your patience." Robert's eyes softened with understanding and compassion. Margaret continued, "I want you to know who you helped that night. I'm the CEO of Hayes Enterprises. We manufacture medical equipment. I've spent 40 years building that company, and on what might have been my last night, because without your help I could have died in that cold. You showed me that all the success and money in the world doesn't matter as much as simple human kindness." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I've already made arrangements. Hayes Enterprises is funding a new community center in your neighborhood. It'll have warming stations for winter, cooling centers for summer, and resources for people in crisis. It's going to be called the Mitchell Community Care Center, after you." Robert's eyes widened. "Margaret, I don't know what to say. That's too much. I didn't do anything special." "But that's exactly it, Robert. You did. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped. No hesitation. No judgment. You gave up your coat in freezing weather for a stranger. In my world, people usually want something in return. You wanted nothing except to make sure I was safe." Her eyes glistened with emotion. "That's everything." Robert felt his own throat tighten. "I just did what felt right." "Exactly. And imagine if everyone did that." Margaret smiled. "The center will open next fall. I hope you'll come to the ribbon cutting. And Robert, I'd like us to stay in touch if you're willing. You reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten in all my years of corporate meetings and boardrooms. You reminded me what really matters." They talked for 2 hours that afternoon, discovering they had more in common than either expected. Both had lost spouses years ago. Both loved classical music and old movies. Both believed in the fundamental goodness of people, even when the world sometimes made that hard to see. As they parted ways outside the cafe, Margaret took Robert's hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving me back my faith in humanity." Robert squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for giving me back my faith that doing the right thing still matters." In the months that followed, they became genuine friends. Margaret made sure to take her medications carefully and arranged for better supervision on difficult days. Robert visited her sometimes, and they'd sit in her garden, drinking tea and talking about life loss and the surprising ways people come into our lives exactly when we need them. The Mitchell Community Care Center opened on a crisp October morning. Robert stood beside Margaret as they cut the ribbon together, surrounded by neighbors and city officials. But for Robert, the true moment came later when an elderly man approached him, shaking his hand and saying, "Thank you for thinking of us, for remembering that we all need help sometimes." That evening, Robert rode the number 47 bus home as usual. When he passed the spot where he'd met Margaret all those months ago, he smiled. His mother had been right all along. Kindness doesn't cost a thing, but sometimes in ways we never expect, it comes back to us multiplied 1,000 times over, not in dollars or recognition, but in the knowledge that we made someone's life a little better. And really, what could be worth more than that?